fine dark. No, it's just here we are. We're live. Compared to Ben, yes. The answer is yes.
Yeah, I know I'm ahead of on the sun. I could come down this half a stop, couldn't I? Except if I touch a dial on this thing, I don't know what's going to happen. So
yeah. Well, hey everybody. People are starting to come into the chat. Harrison's here, and anybody else who's watching that wants to say hi, just type away. And here we are. So this is pre-Flask. Sometimes it's 15 minutes long. Sometimes it's 6 minutes long. Sometimes it's 12 minutes long. Today, it's the shorter of all of those. And what's up, Oren? Good to see you. 360 grad.
360 grad.
Wannabe Films. Keegan Burner. All right. Let's keep them coming. Where are you, by the way, Ben, this week? Out of curiosity.
So I am in a Days Inn. Is that an American chain?
Oh, yeah, we have Days Inn. Yeah, not as many anymore, but yeah, we had them.
So I'm in a Days Inn north of London at Stansted Airport because I've got a stupid early flight tomorrow morning back home. I've been in London for meetings the last 2 days, just running around, crazy busy. You forget how big London is until you cross it 3 times in 2 days from one end to the other.
Oh yeah. And it's not a grid. I mean, London is a cluster.
No.
So
it's got an amazing transport system though. It all just works, and you have your little contactless debit card, credit card, whatever, and you just tap in, and it works on the buses, even boats on the river. It works
on the tube, everything.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, it's nice for a couple of days. We're living somewhere that's very quiet in my little village. A couple of days in London every now and again is a healthy thing. It's good.
Dan.
Hey Dan, how you doing?
Caleb, what hotel are you in? It's like a workshop hotel. It's a theme hotel.
A what hotel?
A workshop hotel.
Yeah.
There should be Kimpton. Kimpton will do like in the future. You'll get a hotel room and it'll be designed like a maker's space. Every room will come with a 3D printer or something.
That would do it.
I don't want to know about what's happening with those 3D printers, but that's all I have to say.
What is that? You're making it sound really weird, dude.
No, I was saying it's a makerspace.
Really awkward items.
I know.
Like I can't even begin to imagine what he's thinking.
I know. I don't.
I'm not thinking. That's the problem. I've been on airplanes for 3 days, so I'm absolutely not thinking. And I was telling you guys earlier, but I was on my first flight today, which also, like yours tomorrow, Ben, left at the crack of dawn. And as I'm an hour and a half out of Seattle, I get a little thing through the app that says your flight has been canceled. Just boom, done. So like no resolution, not we've rebooked you. So for the next hour and 10 minutes until I lost Wi-Fi, I was frantically trying to figure out how to get on another flight. And of course I did because I'm home. So that's a good thing. Bart, how's it going?
What's up, Bart? How are you?
Good. Yeah. So we were saying 2 weeks from tomorrow, Ben, until we are all of us in the city of Las Vegas.
Yeah.
It's wild stuff, man.
It's no time. It's crazy how fast that has just crept around again. Can't wait.
Oh, Bart got his Pocket 4K today. Hasn't even had a chance to turn it on. Well, if you've got one battery, it'll last for like 30 seconds. So do it quickly. No, watch Caleb's guide. What were you gonna say, Ben?
I was going to say that, yeah, if I drop out, that is exactly what's happening because I have no idea how long this thing lasts on LPE6s.
Oh, yeah.
But also just got a camera that I've just turned on. I reckon it'll do an hour, 90 minutes maybe, but I've 2 spare ready to go.
I had a problem with the XT3, and that's when I switched over to the Focus and I started using Sony, L series NPFs, and that's made a huge difference.
Oh, yeah.
Because I'm powering the camera off of it. Yeah.
Yeah. I've been shooting this guide, and I didn't even mess with that. I just got a dummy battery, one of those plates, and I just put a nano clamp on the plate and just attach it to the tripod, and all day it's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bart knows his way around a Pocket. That's his like second. I think he had one before, and now he's got his own or something. And who else? We got Post Color Blog. What's going on, brother?
Yep.
Everyone should check out his channel. He's
Ryan's here.
Stellar fellow. Ryan, how are you?
Oh.
Cool. Okay.
Bart picked one up, and that's what. Oh, you got Ursa Mini Pro 4.6K. Well, it has to be the Pro because it's a 4.46K. Cool. Alex is here. What's up? With a lot of H's and E's and L's and O's.
Alex, how are you?
Someone who's a lot more energy than I have tonight. Clearly.
Wow. Luis, David, Andrew, Irwin, Lab Rat Productions, Jeff.
Another Pocket 4K user. I still think that thing is just the most incredible value for money. It's insane.
It's insane.
So
and now
much,
with Blackmagic Raw, it's outrageous.
Crazy.
Is what it
it's
is.
Crazy.
Two of those, like for the cost of the one C200, you could have two of those and a full set of Vedra. It's any price.
Yeah. What I'm waiting for
amazing.
Is I really want them at NAB in a couple weeks to come out with the Blackmagic Micro Cinema Camera 4K.
Yes.
Then we're talking.
Let's do it.
Because I'm so tired of that stupid giant screen. It's a beautiful screen, but it completely cripples your use of it.
Yeah.
As like a riggable camera.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
And Alex, what light did you get in that you're super excited about, or is this cryptic? Want to hear about that? Oren, where are you based out of? Because you are CVing right now. So let us know where what part of the world you are based, Oren. Dan has been testing out the A7S Mark I tonight with a 135 manual. God, I miss IBIS. Anyone experienced with cam gear tripods? I don't have any cam gear stuff. Caleb, any cam gear tripods?
No. Cam gear, Cam TV.
Yeah. I'll be at the Blackmagic press conference, I think, Bart. Memo,
I definitely will.
Yeah, so Monday morning.
All three of us will then.
Let's do it.
I'm going for the first time.
It'll be the 15th time we see each
bring
other.
like Bloody Marys and sit in the back. Is it early?
Can we do? You know what we should do? We should put Bloody Marys in a flask. Why not?
We should do that.
You can't put bacon in a flask though.
No, but well,
I like
actually,
my Bloody Marys with like a big fat stick of bacon.
Wait a second, Caleb.
Celery and
Caleb, you've seen my giant flask, right? We could definitely put bacon into that.
Okay,
you could put bacon. You couldn't get bacon out of that. I think is going to be your problem. It'll go in. That's not the problem.
It's 301. It's 301. Okay. Oh my god. Right. Okay.
All right. So welcome one and all to episode 21 already of Camera and Flask. Every Wednesday. I'm not even going to go through the times because it's all messed up at the moment with you lot on summertime and we're still on wintertime. But every Wednesday we get together, we have a drink and we talk gear and craft and we talk about business, which is what we're going to be talking about tonight because last week we kind of got halfway through that topic. I arrived late, so we're going to pick that up this week. But before we get into that, firstly, introduce the partners in crime, the three amigos, the other two. Let's go over to the West Coast now for this equally bleary-eyed as me, Jem Schofield. How are you?
Equally bleary. I'm also a limey Brit without the accent, so I have all of that going on too, which is not always a good thing. Yeah, Jem Schofield of the C47. This is my channel on the YouTubes, and I'm, I guess, the elder statesman here, if you could call me that. And I do what we all do. We make things. We tell stories, and we solve problems. And so here we are. And I just got back home. I've been on airplanes and traveling around. I just did a scout in Atlanta for a new potential project, which should be pretty interesting, and working on some other stuff. So there you go. And over to the middle part of our country, and to this guy right here.
Hi, everybody. How's everyone doing? Thanks for joining us. Yeah, Caleb Pike, DSLR Video Shooter, and we seem all fairly low key, so maybe this beverage thing needs to happen.
Well,
soon.
hold on. Yeah, but I do want to say, speaking of Caleb Pike, of DSLR Video Shooter. Today, or maybe it was yesterday, depending on where I was in the world, the new episode of Indie Mogul, hosted by Ted Sim, dropped with the one and only Mr. Caleb Pike. And it's a great episode. And you're hanging out there. I see the little magnanimous, little branding in the background. You guys are in like a raw space and stuff. But I think it's a really cool conversation that you're having with him and talking about tripods and lenses and all kinds of other essential gear and getting people to stop thinking about all the gack all the time, even though that's the world we live in. So check that out on Indie Mogul's channel. And I love all the other content that they're creating too.
Oh, it's amazing.
They're really killing it. I mean, when they said they were going to commit, they're committing. It's awesome. So great job, Caleb, on that, by the way.
Thank you. No, he made it look really nice. And it was really refreshing because getting a little bogged down with cameras, gimbals, all the buzzword stuff. So it's cool just to not talk about that for a little bit.
Yep.
Nice. Very good.
The bowling PL1. And what about you, Ben? Who are you?
So I am Ben Barden, and I am a filmmaker, photographer, sometimes DP, sometimes director, sometimes producer. A lot of the time, all of those things in one. I'm in the UK at the moment. I'm in an airport hotel in Stansted, so just north. I've had 2 days of meetings. I had lunch with my client, talking about doing some more oil rig filming, really far away stuff this time. So that's kind of quite exciting, and a whole new world of dealing with carnets and work visas and all that kind of stuff. So some things in the Far East, hopefully. Wow. But so that's good. So I think we all need a drink and need to get into this now. So
we do. And Part-Time Films is here, so now we can relax.
Okay.
So
cool.
Let's do it. Now it's
all
time.
Right. We can crack the drinks. We were waiting for you, my friend. So let's go. I think see Jem's already. He's got his glass twitching. So go on. We'll go over to you. You're clearly desperate to tell us. What are you drinking?
Not desperate to tell you, but let's get the drink going so we can start the conversation. Sunday was, as you probably know, St. Patrick's Day. I made 2 giant vats of Guinness stew, which was quite good, by the way. So I'm going to have a Guinness. Why not?
All right.
That's what I'm going to have. So let's let that. That's the nitro. I definitely like the nitro. Well, you like the nitro. So
I can't do the bottle.
No. Well, they now have a bottle that has
they do
nitro.
with the widget in. Yeah.
Yep, they do. Okay. But it's not the same. I personally think they can. And by the way, Ben, can you just tell everybody about this? The temperature of Guinness, and that they found that the cellar temperature was different than what they originally thought or have thought for a long time, right? When you go to Ireland now, they sometimes serve it at 2 different temperatures because they have to keep it at the old temperature. But they've been doing
that for quite a long time. So
but people don't know about it. Yeah.
Yeah. So in bars in Europe, well, mainly just Britain and Ireland, you have two taps on the bar, one for Guinness cold and one for Guinness regular. I'm traditional unless it's really cold, and if it's really hot outside, and then I'm not drinking Guinness if it's like that. It's a winter drink.
Yeah, exactly. Well, this is at the end, so it's starting to get warm here. Caleb, what are you drinking?
So this week, all right, gotta do my thing here. This week, ladies and gentlemen, I was inspired. Let's get real up close and personal here.
Wow,
I was inspired by. Were you ready for that? I was inspired by Ben's.
I can be seduced.
There you go, dude. Jim. Inspired by Ben's comment that one of his daily drinkers, his daily drivers, is like a cheap blend from where was it?
It's from Lidl. I've done a whole bottle of it in a week last week.
Whew.
Yeah.
Well, this week I'm beginning a journey of what's the perfect budget. You know, you need a little something in your life, but you're not ready to drop some coin. Okay, Jim, that's so close. Here we go. Oh.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. In fact, what's funny about I actually had a Scottish coffee this morning with a Dewar's White Label on the airplane. So nice. I had a white label today. There we go.
Don't think I've ever tried that.
Okay.
All right. So
it's the #1 selling whiskey in the world. Scotch.
Really?
I think White Label is.
The White Label.
I think White Label is #1. I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that Dewar's white label is, and that largely has to do with the United States. But yeah, okay.
So the deal though with this is, it's a little gasoline-y, and it kind of sits on the tongue there. So just a touch of water.
Is the description on the label? Is that the tasting notes? It's a little gasoline-y.
It's a little
with a hint of gasoline.
It has a sweetness to it, but I would definitely put a few drops.
You know what
of
I mean?
in there.
Like once it just sits on your tongue and just kind of burns.
Yeah.
So just a touch of water, and it's a new experience. So.
Okay, what about you, Ben? What you got?
So I've been in, for the most part of my London 2 days, I've been based in Hackney, and my friend Toby Tompkins, who has a cheat grading facility there. So I've been hanging out with him a bit, and there's a brewery just next to his place, which I've been in before, and in the petrol station across the road here is the AF got a kick in.
Oh, bingo, yep.
So this is a pale ale from the Hackney brewery. I've never tried this particular one before, but I had a tour of that brewery on a birthday party a few years ago, and it was it's a nice place, a tiny little brewery. It's right in the middle of the city. Yeah, interesting stuff.
Well, Leo's gonna have some grappa. Wow. Right.
Oh,
nice.
Oh, that's serious. Right then. Charged glasses.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Slanted, Jem.
Yep. Here we go. Let's do it.
Oh, that's really good. Really good.
This tastes like a Guinness. Let me see that bottle, by the way, Caleb. How much is in that bottle?
I don't want to show it to you.
You're an unbelievable human being. Oh my God. Okay, back to Ben.
It's clearly all right, isn't it? Yeah.
we had some friends over.
Okay. I know. Yeah.
No one's judging. It's fine.
Nope.
I just said I did a whole bottle last week on my own with no friends over. Yeah. All right. So we're going to pick up where we left off last week. So we were getting into some nitty-gritty of, I guess, just how we've structured ourselves and how we've got to be what we're doing now. And I can't really remember the point at which we stopped last week. Do either of you two remember where we ended up?
Nope.
Okay, so
kind of. I mean, I think there was. I think the way we ended up was with a question about books, that can help you with stuff, and
okay,
and I basically said use books for inspiration.
I guess maybe a good place to start.
Ask questions, and we want people to ask questions, right, Ben? This is the type of one where it's really a big conversation. Yep.
Yeah. So anything that we can maybe share our experience with that might be of help to you, please do ask us. But just to get going, I'm not sure if we covered this last week in the bit before I joined in, but I thought it'd be interesting to talk about where we get our clients from. Particularly me and you, I guess. I know sort of Caleb's doing different things for his commercial activity now. But where do you find most of your work comes from? Where do you find that?
I mean, I'll just briefly answer this. I think that one of the things that happened when the C-47 started 10 years ago now was that...
Congratulations.
Yeah, I don't know if that's a congratulatory point, but when I started doing videos every day, I also started to teach workshops. And the two things kind of collided in the New York area because I was doing these free teaser workshops at B&H in their event space for weekend DSLR filmmaking, going from stills to motion, which was a big thing, especially when the 5D Mark II came out. And I also did what we still do, which is go to trade shows and meet up with people. And I met up with a guy from Canon at a little trade show. And then I was doing those teasers at B&H, and people from Canon started to show up and basically audit those classes. And eventually we started talking, and they asked me if I would write an article on rigging DSLRs. Clearly, of course, 5D Mark IIs and 7D Mark Is. And so I did that. And then that was the first job I did for Canon, and I thought that was it. And the next job I did for them was a video series that turned out to be 21 videos. So so that kind of started to put me down this path of creating educational content related to this stuff. I had already been a producer for a long time and doing production, but that's sort of when I started the transition into education related to this industry, specifically production, because I've been teaching post for a long time. And then just over the years, it's become, I guess, a wheelhouse of mine. So it's not the only work I do. You know, I do a lot of other corporate work and I do a lot of other types of projects. But I do find that a lot of the content that I'm creating is from companies in our industry. And so I'm not really a networking kind of person, but I find that it's just this constant communication, and especially at certain times of the year. So NAB will be a very important show for me. So I go there to look at new equipment to talk about, but I also go and meet with the companies that I have relationships with. And we figure out whether or not it makes sense for me to do sponsored content for them or not. So it's just, you know, and sometimes it's not sponsored content. Sometimes all the work I've ever done from Canon has never been sponsored. They're just hiring me as a production company to produce educational content. And so I guess that's probably, and then some of it is just word of mouth, but it's really that I'm trying to stay connected to this industry, I guess.
So I think the thing that I was wanting to go on to with that was how, I mean, I'm a bit the same in that for the corporate work, most of it's word of mouth. People have seen something, or it's just in a specialist area that I have experience and clients with and I'm known in. But I'm quite guilty of just letting work come in and me just kind of being very reactive to whatever comes in, and I do that. And if I go down a path, I'll maybe try and explore that more. But I've never been very good at actually setting a roadmap for where I want the business to go and for what I want to be doing and the kind of work that I want to be doing. To an extent I do, but not. There's never been like a big game plan for it. And I just wondered if that was something that I think Caleb, when we were talking last week and about the way that you've developed what you're doing, that you're very organized with that and you have a plan. And I was wondering for your stuff and the directions that you go, particularly with the corporate side of things, how you structure it, I suppose.
You're talking to me or to Caleb on that?
To you.
Well, I mean, I think like you, and this isn't going to sound like great advice, I am somewhat reactive to, you know, what's going on. I hustle. I mean, we all do. We have our moments, and, you know, where you have to figure out, and I think that Caleb can talk to the fact that he has shifts. You know, there's times in what he does where he evaluates his business and he makes shifts, you know, whatever you call those things. So for me, a lot of it is, you know, there is some marketing aspect to it, but I think that the channel is a big part of that. And one of the reasons that I really wanted to get back to doing the channel, because it feeds me to do production on a regular basis. But I also have found an uptick again of getting work from companies. I mean, I think I've been talking to Small HD for a long time about creating content and doing some sort of series on something. And maybe it's coincidence, maybe it's not. But after I started doing Gearbox consistently again, the conversation became more real. And I did a series on their focus monitors. I'm wrapping up something right now for Zeiss, who's a company I have done stuff on and off for a long time. But it looks like people are starting to reach out to me now. So what I'll probably wind up doing is I'll probably send out the series that I just produced for Small HD and say, if it's very specific marketing, it'll go to the industry as a whole and say, here's a sponsored series that I did for this company. So that's, you know, there is a thought process there.
Yeah.
And I roller coaster on social media all the time. And that's the hardest thing. I'm consistent with YouTube now, but I find that I go through these phases. I don't know how you feel about this, Caleb, but it's just like there's sometimes where I just don't want to touch anything in social media. It's like I want to send a tweet every once in a while and concentrate on creating content for the YouTube channel. So I don't know, you know, that's still elusive to me to a certain degree.
Yeah, I think
Actually, you haven't got that luxury, have you? I suppose,
What?
Caleb, on that. You haven't got that luxury to be able to take your hands off it with the way that you're structured.
Well,
You're kind of
I'm
committed
not
to
far off from Jem. I mean, I'll Twitter is kind of my main. That's where I hang out when I do hang out on social media. Instagram and Facebook, it's just auto. I just kind of push it. I need to do more with Instagram, but I would say just do whatever feels right. Because remember back when like everyone had to like was supposed to start an account with everything and then do something with it.
Yep.
What a waste of time. You know, go to where your people are and hang out there. So if that's YouTube, you know, I think you should have at least 2 in play. But yeah.
Yep.
Now, I think that makes sense what you guys are saying. Like when it rains, it pours, and you kind of have to be reactive, wouldn't you say? You know, you unless you have downtime.
Yeah, but then it's that difficult thing that if you're reactive, and I think Jem and I are in a bit of a similar situation at the moment in that work seems to be kind of quite on the up, and we both seem to be quite busy again, and that's great. But then in that time, I find that I'm just absorbed in doing that, and that's taking all my headspace, and I'm not really pushing into other things or making inroads into future leads, because I go, well, all right, I've got 3-4 months ahead of me that's booked out, and that's a really bad habits to get into. But yeah,
that's the hardest thing, right, Ben? Is that you're busy and then you don't promote, you don't market, you don't put yourself out there, and then the money's coming in, and then when you realize there's no more work and there's no more money coming in, there's usually sometimes an 8 to 12 week period of time before things start to pick up again and you really start to generate income again, and then you're effed. And so it's really it's tough.
And just picking up on what people are talking about in the chat at the moment, there's a lot of chat now about payments and prepayments and sorting out, sort of protecting yourself that way. And they're talking about taking deposits up front, and that is something that I always do now. It's not something I used to do. I used to get bitten so badly with that. And then part of that is that it works well because it concentrates the mind of the client as well, and they're less likely to start postponing days and cancelling days if they've already got money in it. But also, it's just different companies work on different payment terms, is my experience. So it's generally the bigger the company, the slower they are to pay, is my general rule. Not exclusively, but that's generally how it works. So if you can get a deposit before any production work starts at all, you've at least got some cash flow coming in, and people are talking about doing 30% up front. And if I'm doing everything, that's generally how I do it. I do a third up front at time of booking, a third at the end of production, and then the final third on delivery.
Yep.
And that seems to work out okay.
There's a lot of talk about billing in the chat right now.
Yeah.
I can say, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, Kyle, welcome, and Ryan, is this your first stream with us? If not, welcome. Good to see you, dude. Sorry, Jem. I totally jumped in. I just wanted to address.
No, you should. That's why we do
some
this.
new faces to me, at least.
Yeah, and definitely some new people. So I was just saying, as a producer, you know, when I write a proposal and I do budgets and I do some workshops on this, I used to think that people had no interest in it, but they have a lot of interest in it, even if it's just the way you do it. That proposal and that budget is the blueprint for the entire project for me. So that's where I work everything out. Even though the client doesn't see all of that on paper, I'm soft holding, I'm picking locations, I'm figuring out how much travel is. And not unlike probably most of the people that are here, I'm small potatoes in terms of what I can quote unquote bankroll when it comes to a production. So it's really important that you set that up in your proposal and you lay out your budget in a way that you can cover your costs. And so the way I do it, except for, as you said, Ben, the bigger clients, but you can usually work out something with them that's sort of a semi-compromise, is pre-production, production, equipment, and insurance is billed up front. Because that means that I can handle everything to set up for, and I can pay my crews and my location. I can handle all my, insurance stuff, and anything that's related to production. If I'm renting, or I'm renting my equipment, or I'm renting from somewhere else, those costs are covered.
Yeah.
And then I'm not charging a production company fee in that first payment, which is profit. And I'm not charging anything related to post-production in that first payment. So I'm covering everything that allows me to not pay people net 30, net 45, net 60. I can pay everybody net 14 generally. There are exceptions, but most of the time I can schedule a payment to the production people the day after the shoot is completed. And occasionally, if it's somebody I've worked with for years and I know what the quality of their work is, I might even schedule their payment before I even get to the production, because the money's in the bank. And you don't want, as a small company, the last thing in the world you want is for money to be sitting inside your bank account that's supposed to be for other people.
No,
you want money in your bank, but you don't want other people's money in your bank. Is that correct, Ben? I mean, come on.
Yes, but the way that I do that is that I have sub accounts set out within my main bank account. I'm not sure if this is easy to do in the States, but here it's very easy to have multiple sub accounts. So I have one where all my my VAT, my sales tax that I have to charge. It works slightly different in the US, but I have to charge sales tax, and that I then have to pay back to the government, but I only pay it once a quarter, which reminds me that's another job for next week. And that's then in that account, and that's not in my tempting to spend account. And it's the same with when you're getting money in that is for people that I'm subcontracting to, so crew. Also, that goes into a separate account. And then and things like for when you're doing travel, just to keep everything separate. So that's my biggest expense normally on a job. So that thing I did in Norway, that was probably just for me alone, because it was a fairly weird place to get to and very expensive. My travel bill alone was probably knocking on £2,000. So that I have a credit card that I use entirely for that. And then I have that set up so that I actually get some benefit from the credit card points or whatever, frequent flyer points, or however you want to set that up. But just keeping everything separate. And I know with the credit card that I've got 2 months before I start paying interest on anything. And then if I know that client will definitely sort me out with that. But I also take, if I know what the expenses are, we do a kind of a rough estimate of the expenses, given what we know at the time of getting the job in, which invariably will change. But I then take all of that up front with the third of the cost of the production. And that seems to keep things cash flow wise working out okay.
So I'm going to ask a question to Caleb, because of the three of us, your business model it's not opposite our business model, but it's a very different business model, and it's evolved over time. How do you make a decision? You talk about what you want to talk about, but how do you make a decision in terms of how much time you spend creating content for the YouTube channel, which of course has potential benefit of increasing subs, more affiliate sales, which is great because it's mailbox money, and that kind of stuff, and then doing something which is again self-funded, self-produced, self-finance, which are your camera guides, which are also things that will eventually produce income. Like, how do you figure out that balance? Is it something that you sit down every 3 to 6 months about? It's just, to me, it's really fascinating because it's such a different model than other people. Well, most other people.
I should be sitting down and having kind of a big business goal. And just this year, I'm making kind of that big shift of just reactionary, like we've kind of been talking about, to really getting, what's the word? Planning, but effectual with my
strategizing.
Business. Yeah. So for a long time, it was just build up the YouTube channel. And now it's starting to swing. So it's tough because you got to keep the channel growing. And that's my real passion, is just giving away information.
Right.
But for those who want more, that's going to cost me a lot to make those. So I charge for those. And it kind of supports the whole multiple eggs in the basket thing. So I'm leaning more toward doing more of the guides and just becoming more efficient so the YouTube can not take a hit, the YouTube side. And I started to really get after the guide thing once I kind of like when people would meet me at NAB, they would say, you know, hey, what's up? My name's this. I bought your yada yada guide. Like I was turning into like the guide guy. And that's when I was like, okay, let's start to shift more focus into that. Otherwise, you know, if you went all guide stuff or trying to sell, you know, my academy guides, you're just shouting into the dark, you know? So, yeah, it's just a balance, making sure neither dies really. That's the end.
Yeah.
At
But
the
you
end of
like
the day.
doing both of them. But would you say
Yeah.
that the YouTube content is what you love doing, and the guides you like doing them because you're educating people? But I'm assuming when you do a project of that size, it's
you're
hanging
ready to
over
be
your
done.
head. Right,
Yeah.
exactly. Okay.
Yeah, it's a lot of research. It feels good to have something like fully understood something and package that information in a way that makes sense. And each camera is completely different, so it's a challenge each time. The nice thing with YouTube is you wrap it up and you move on. Like, once I hit publish, I'm like completely done with that and moving on to the next thing.
Okay.
Whereas the guides is like months and months. But can I come back for a second to the bed thing real quick? And then we can do whatever. You were talking about breaking things up, and I just finished a book that is completely changing how I'm formatting a lot of things, and that's Profit First. Has anyone read that or heard of that? So the guy's a little goofy, but the idea is pretty revolutionary and has already made like a massive impact. And that is, instead of, you know, income comes in, you pay all your bills, you do all your stuff, and then whatever's left, it goes to you. You know, how we typically do accounting in the world. This starts with profit. So you set a percentage, all your income, everything comes into one bank account, and then it's separated by percentages to other accounts.
Right.
You got your tax, you got your giving or whatever, you've got your owner's comp, so your salary. But the first line item is profit. And the idea is you start at a certain point, like 1%, and you slowly build that up, and you're distributing that quarterly. And he's got this whole process, and I'm just like getting triggered over here and kind of switching to that slowly. But I was just curious if anyone had heard of that. Yeah. And what's interesting is you throw a video production at it and it makes it very interesting. Because, you know, we don't operate a business where we sell blue widgets, and you know what it costs to make those blue widgets.
No.
It's all over the place.
But I guess that's the thing of putting it in as a line item.
Yeah.
It is just, that's really interesting. Yeah. Really,
so it's a good book. It's a good read or a listen on Audible. He's kind of a interesting character, but
what's it called again?
Profit First.
Profit First.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
Great.
So I want to just answer a couple of questions or get into a couple of things here, which people are having some conversations about budgeting and getting paid and all that fun stuff. I need to reiterate how important, at least for me, over the past 20 plus years, the proposal has become, because people are asking, you know, how many rounds of revisions do you do? That's in my proposal. So I have a post-production section that says that we're going to submit a rough cut. By the way, a rough cut nowadays is not a rough cut. It's a fine cut. Trust me. It's got music. It's got lower thirds. It's got all kinds of stuff. But it's, you know, and it's gone through me as a post supervisor from the editor, like 3 or 4 rounds of revisions already on Frame.io, going back and forth to kind of polish it. We're just at the point right now with these 2 Zeiss videos where I'm going to upload them today. I've commented on all those videos 3 times, I think. So, you know, you've got to put that into the proposal. I also have a project terms, which states, depending on who the client is, what is and is not included. So it's very clear. To me, writing a proposal is black and white. There's no gray. You remove the gray from what you're doing from a business standpoint. And it's the same with your billing schedule. Your billing schedule needs to be black and white. It's not maybe or, it's due here and it's due within this amount of time. And you agree upon all of those things with your client before you start your project. It's not, there's no handshakes, you know? no kumbaya here. It can be love and roses when you get to the point where you're doing the production and everybody's agreed upon what you're doing. But business is business, and it needs to be black and white. Otherwise, you're going to get burned at some point. And you can't promise that you're going to have a client that you hand over a project to at the end of a project and they're not, that they're going to pay you. It's not a guarantee, I mean, but most of the time it is. And if you have any problem with that, you hold it back until you get the payment. But it's,
That's what I was just going to make that point. That the one technique that I can't use it with every client, and you've got to make a judgment on it. But if you holding back the work and using Vimeo, and I guess Frame.io does something similar, that you put the thing up and you set it also that it can't be linked to, it can't be downloaded, they can view it, but that's it. And at that point, the last invoice goes out, and it's clear that that video doesn't become available to them to use for their own ends until that final invoice has been settled. And normally, that really sorts things very quickly indeed.
Sure.
Yeah.
Good. So, by the way, that's part of how you make money doing this SHI asterisk T exclamation point. I mean, because if you're not getting paid, you're not making money and you're not paying the bills. And I think that probably the hardest thing for people, look, I'm going to get burned again at some point, but I get burned very little now because of learning from all of these mistakes from the past. And, the biggest mistake I used to make was everybody gets really excited about the project and you're talking creative and everybody's, and we're going to do this and it's going to be amazing. And then the reality of what a project is settles in. And if you haven't really given that proposal and that budget and really laid out exactly what it is, there's going to be a lot of false expectations, or there's going to be expectations or, that are completely unrealistic that were never communicated by certain people on the team. And then it's, you're the creative person or company, and you have to deliver. And then you're stuck. You're up against a wall because they're not going to pay you until you deliver. And then you wind up doing 2, 3, 4 times more work than you really should be, based on whatever it is that you've sort of agreed to in this gray realm of production.
And I think even with the best organization in the world and having things as black and white as possible, there's still times when you end up with a slight disconnect between your or maybe the client's expectations or understanding of all of this stuff, because they're not engaged in this world generally, and they've got this idea in their head, but they've not been able to articulate it. And then when you bring the project back, and it's maybe not exactly what they thought, and then that's really difficult. And having everything in that document at the beginning is massively useful to be able to go back to and say, no, this is exactly what we agreed was happening.
Caleb, you used to do corporate work, and it's like if you don't put something in writing, then it can really burn you. I mean, I've had like almost $15,000 to $20,000, like I would have to pay for it if it wasn't in the proposal. Things happen. So, I mean, did you used to put together like a full proposal and budget, or did it just depend on what you were doing?
Yeah, no, I made all the mistakes when I first got started, and even many, many, many years later. I haven't been doing it as long as you guys. But for the most part, I worked for guys like Jem and Ben. Like, they were my clients for the most part.
Right.
A big percentage was that. And then toward the end, it was kind of, more and more my own thing. Everything else. And I think the whole goal, I have a good friend, Corbin Tyson, who I did a guide on corporate video with, and it's pretty much me asking him questions the whole time, because he's like a huge Jem fan. He's been doing this for a long time as well. And a lot of this like pre-production stuff is to get all that taken care of, just like Jem was saying. So there's no questions. And one of the biggest goals is so they feel comfortable. There's no question marks everyone knows exactly what's going to happen, even down to who's paying for lunch on the production day. That just frees them up to not worry about stuff. And if you can deliver that, I think there's a good chance you're going to get the gig.
And it does make everything more relaxed once you're into it as well. If you've had everything sort of tied down, and I'll freely admit that there's certain clients and certain jobs where there's been an awful lot more prep gone into it than others. And I'm just going to pull up this point that APS Columbians just said budgets are not for small or independent clients. Yes, they are. They're for all of them.
Yeah, and they are. They're totally for them because they're spending money no matter how much or how little money it is. And if you don't write at the very least, you write a black and white proposal that has $1 to it, and don't show them the breakdown if you think that that's weird. But I'm very transparent about how I break down. There's a budget in almost all of my proposals that breaks down pre-production, production, full crew, expenses, post-production. It has equipment. It has, production like services, which is insurance and the profit basically, which is your production company fee. I'm with Ben on this 1,000,000%. It's then you're gonna. This is part of the problem that you're running into, is the mentality that if they're small or independent, you don't give them a budget and a proposal. You absolutely do, because most of those situations will turn out that you won't do the job. But
no.
But if you do it the other way, that's when you get burned.
That is when you get burnt. But it's not only a benefit for you as someone producing content for them. It's also benefiting them because they know exactly what they're getting for their money, where it's going, and what it's going on, and they understand why it costs what it costs because it's all broken down for them. And it's a much everyone just knows where they are, no matter what the budget. If you've done that, So there was another comment I just wanted to pick up on that. I'd say the lower the budget, the more demanding the client. The reason that is, and there is definitely some truth to that, is because normally when you're dealing with lower budgets, you're often dealing with smaller businesses. And when you're dealing with smaller businesses, you're often dealing with the business owner who is personally financially invested in it.
Yeah.
If you're dealing with a bigger company, you're normally dealing with someone who's a marketing manager or whatever that is within the position. They're salaried. It's not their own money, and they're detached from it in terms of a personal investment. They're invested in it because it's their job and they're into it. But that's the big difference I find between working for small firms and for big. And some small firms I really love working for because they're so into it, because it is their life, it's everything, and all their money's in it. I have a couple of clients that I really like working for, and they're really good to deal with too. So it's not that that they're always bad clients. But that, I think, is the difference. It's that detachment that people have in a big organization that are the people that are commissioning you.
He's back to Shiz Nuts.
Shiz Nuts, welcome, sir.
Okay, so listen, I want to address something right now, and people don't have to agree with me on this, and I'm totally okay with you not agreeing with me on this, please. There's some comments in here that are the red flags of the nightmares that we have all dealt with when it comes to working with clients. And as hard as it is, and trust me, I know. I mean, I'm married. I have 3 kids. So, and there's been times where I haven't worked for 6-9 months. There's been times where I haven't worked for 3 to 6 months. But one for one, consistently, I have found that any time that I have taken a job for money, not money is the byproduct, but I've taken it for money to solve an immediate problem because I don't have enough work. And I do it, and I do it in a hurried way, and I don't do it thoroughly. It's been a while that I haven't done it thoroughly. I have always regretted it because it always comes back to bite me. And you have to get away from this idea that a client, no matter, first of all, my clients aren't Coca-Cola. Okay. I'm not doing stuff for Microsoft. I'm not doing stuff for Apple. I'm not doing stuff for Google. I teach people at Google and other people, but they're not my clients per se. Right. So when we're talking about the work that I do, I'm in middle tier at best in terms of what I do. I'm paying my crews the rates that are appropriate to the geographical region that I'm hiring them in. I'm trying to make at most 15 to 20% profit on the job as a production company fee. And I'm trying to cover the costs and, make some money so that I can, as a byproduct, because I do love what I do. But if you don't get yourself out of this thought that you can waste a client because they're going to ask you for something that is beyond what you should be doing. I get it. When you're learning, then you do. But when you get to at least a certain level where you can deliver a product to a client that's going to be a professional product, that's going to, as long as you're understanding who their target audience is and what you're trying to communicate and what their brand stands for, you're doing something that does that effectively, then there's no reason that it should not be a mutual admiration society, right? A club. And you have to work with them to come to agreements that are black and white in terms of what it is that you're producing. You shouldn't feel like you have to do anybody any favors when you are competent at what you do. We have a product or a service that we can deliver. And if we have value to a client, then we have to have enough confidence that we can deliver that to that client. And if you don't have that attitude, then it will just be this constant revolving wheel. And you'll find yourself 20 years from now just doing that. And it'll just be a constant struggle. And I'm not I'm not doing the million, the $500,000, the $250,000 jobs. But I do have enough confidence to know that I can understand what it is that the client's doing. I will spend a lot of time, of non-billable time, putting together a blueprint, a proposal, and a budget for that project. And if it's not accepted by the client after going back and forth and figuring out what the parameters of the project are, then it's not a project you should be doing, because you will regret it later on. And I don't care how small they are. Yeah.
No, and the dangerous times are the times when you are quiet, because then you find it a lot harder to stick to your guns in terms of pricing and being rigid in your proposals and things, because you need work. You've got mouths to feed, and then it's very difficult. And you do need to do it, but it's I know I've been guilty in the past, certainly, of agreeing to do things that I regret enormously and have just turned into colossal clusterfuck jobs.
Yep.
Because it's not been that, and you've agreed to do it for a rate, and then
you can just very simply start by figuring out what crew charges in your area for standard day rates. And when you're putting together budgets, you figure out how many people are involved in pre-production and how many days are going to be there, including yourself, by the way, because you're one of the billables. And you have to put in food and expenses in there. So if you're doing pre-production, $50 a day for each crew day that's being done, because that's coming out of your pocket. And when you get to production, it's the same thing. If you've got a DP and there's $750 a day times 3, then you put $22.50 in there for the DP. And then there's a production company fee, which is 15 or 20% on top of that. That's your profit that you're making on that as a company, so you can reinvest into your company. But you still need to have meals and expenses in every single part of your production. And it's not rocket science. You have to figure out what your expenses are as a producer, and you have to line item those. You have to figure out how many days of assistant editor, how many days of editor, how many days of post supervisor. You have to figure out how much those hard drives are going to cost. You just have to break it down into those different categories. And if they don't agree with your price, that's the standard rate. You're not trying to make $1 million here. You're just trying to do work for fair rate in your market. And if they nickel and dime you, they're going to be a nightmare forever and ever. They'll never pay more. If you do the one favor where it's like, oh, on this one, can you just do this? Trust me, you're never going to get more money.
Yeah, but that said, I agree completely. But then there's also, because I often find that you start off with a project and you kind of go quite big in the proposal and you put all sorts in, and then you can whittle it down. It's not like you're whittling down the price for that same piece of work. You're saying, well, what can we do to reduce the cost in terms of that we may be having smaller crew and they need to understand the consequences of that. Or maybe we axe the drone or whatever it is. So there's ways that you can, you start off with a big proposal and you can take items out, but what you're not doing is giving that same level of product at the beginning and then discounting the price. You're taking things out of the project to get the price down if that's what correct. You need to do.
And that is so important, is that if you're going to change the price of the project, you have to change the parameters of the project. And sometimes, because we know how post goes, I mean, Caleb, you know how it goes, Ben, you know how it goes. If you say you're going to do a 5 to 7 minute video for a client, it may take as much time as a 3 to 5 minute video. But if you're going to change a price on a proposal, you need to change something in the proposal to change the parameters. Yes. And a drastic change might be number of days of production. But a small change might be that it's no longer a 5 to 7 minute video, it's a 3 to 5 minute video. And, and you make a little bit of a change in terms of post-production to reflect that. And that's how you change the price. It's just one way to do it. Because if you drop the price, right, guys, as soon as you drop the price, it means they think you were trying to make more than you should have made. Yeah, exactly. You're trying to fleece them.
And also you're then stuck with that rate. It's hard. It's always then hard to then pull that back up because you regret doing it. And it's always going to come back and bite you.
Can I answer Ryan? So Ryan's asking about whether or not I make my production company fee part of the budget in the budget. And I absolutely do. And I said, I put it in plain sight. And he said, what do you say when they ask what that fee is? I say it's a production company fee. And I very, very, very obviously say that that's my profit as a company. I don't sugarcoat it. How the F do you run a company unless you make a profit? It's like, if you're only hiring yourself out as a producer and the DP, then you're doing all the work of a producer to put the whole project together and to have the expenses of a company that has production insurance and all of the other aspects that are there. And then you have no way to reinvest into your company. Yeah. So if they don't understand, go ahead, Caleb.
I was just going to say, and be honest with them. Like, I have a friend who's brutally honest, especially as you become comfortable with them. Like, I got kids. I got to, look at this huge amount that you're spending on this video. Like, this is me. This is the project. This is me right here.
Yep.
And just be straight with them. He'll even, like, on set, they'll be like, wow, that's a crazy camera. Like, yeah, that's $20,000. Crazy, right? Like, it's not cheap.
No.
I think once you get into production and clients there, they generally start seeing where the money's going because they do see what kind of kit, and they always chat and they want to know how much things cost. And I think that's all right. And I think there's this thing that I don't know if the same with you two, but it's quite easy to get into this thing of being embarrassed about trying to make money. Yeah. It is this thing where you're like, you have a right to be making money, but and particularly in the kind of apologetic Englishness that I suffer from, you're kind of, I'm sorry, that's kind of, I need to, but you have to, you're working for companies who are getting you to produce content for them so they can make more profit.
Yeah. And that's it's so important. I was going to try to get this in there somewhere. We've been talking about dealing with the client, the cheap clients, this, that, and the other thing. But you got to look in the mirror. You got to grow a pair, and you got to realize what it costs, and be honest with these people, especially if you're getting started. Don't try to get crooked and try to dodge stuff. Like people were saying, how do you say this? And Jem said, just say it. Now, obviously, we're not going to show them the back room, but you don't be dishonest. And I think at the end of the day, we all have to realize that we're, especially in the corporate or video production, whatever filmmaking industry, where guys like us are in the service industry in a way.
Yeah.
And if your number one goal is to help your clients sell whatever they sell, not make the next Star Wars on the client's dime, then I don't know how you can lose.
Right.
Right? If you're smart and good with business and all the stuff that we've already talked about, and if your goal is to help Zeiss sell lenses, not do a really cool drone shot, right? Then
That's it.
That's it.
You're making them. You're entirely there to make them money, and you're in the same game. And I think just at one point that just came into my head when you were saying that, Caleb, about being with kind of service industry. Part of this thing when you're justifying rates to clients, not that you really need to, but if you're going out with your own kit and you really are doing like one-man band shoots or really small crew stuff, you can send clients as to what that gear that you're taking out on that job would cost if they went and rented that for a day. So my day rate for me is me and my kit. And then when you look at what my kit would cost from a rental house for a day, it's about half of my day rate is my kit and half of my day rate is me when I'm doing those kind of jobs generally. So that's another thing to bear in mind. And there was just a couple of things that had come up that people were asking about software they were using for kind of managing business and managing finances. I use Zero, which I don't know if it exists. It's a Kiwi product, I think. But that handles all my sales tax. It handles my limited company, which is like I guess an incorporated company. I don't know if in the States, I don't know what the equivalent is. But it does everything and it files it all with the tax office in the UK. So this whole thing costs me £20, about $30 a month, but it's genius. And it's saved me on my accountancy fees. My accountancy bill has come down by a third since I started using it. So it's actually saving money and it's just easy. Everything's in one place. And you can always log into it and you see where you are in the year. This is what you've turned over already this year. This is what you spent on gear. This is what you spent on flights. Really useful.
Yep. I want to answer APS. APS is, or APS Colombian. I'm scared. How blunt should we be? And then I'm going to throw a question to Caleb. It's not about being blunt. It's about being honest. And I think that one of the hardest things when I was younger was that I felt like I had to be a certain type of person in business and I had to act a certain way. And even back then, I thought I had to dress a certain way for certain types of meetings and things that I was doing. And over time, I realized that everybody except assholes are just people, and they're people too, but they're just assholes. And so it was like, why aren't I just having conversations with people and just being honest with them and talking things out and just being myself? That may not work for certain people because maybe there's not a compatibility in terms of personalities. But
maybe they're an asshole.
Yeah, maybe I'm an asshole. But when you stop pretending to be somebody else and you just are like, this is what I do and I'm really passionate about doing it, then the proposal is your bluntness. That's your black and white. And everything else should be a conversation. And it should be fact-finding and figuring out what the things are. So that's, I think, my answer to that. So we have one here, Caleb, in your world, and this is interesting because, I'll give my take on it too, but do you feel like YouTubers are shamed for doing sponsored content? The word shill is often used to personally attack those who earn. Feelings on that?
Yeah, I don't want to get too political, but we have such a socialist in the worst possible way, because I know there's a spectrum there.
Nope.
He was about to drop some serious knowledge and maybe say something.
Something political. Someone's cut a cord there, haven't they? Someone's been monitoring us, and they're like, no, you can't say that.
I'll quickly give you my viewpoint. It can get into a gray area sometimes. Oh, Caleb's back.
He's back.
We were saying that people cut you off because you started to say
you started talking about socialism, and then it just went poof.
Yeah,
no, go ahead.
What are we expected to do? Just bust our rumps for nothing?
Right.
And by that, I do totally understand. Like, a lot of us do this because we love it. But 2 kids aren't going to feed themselves. A house isn't going to pay itself off. I have no problem with people monetizing things. Go for it. And people get crazy about, you know, greed and all this thing. Then stop watching and start your own thing and do it for free. You know? Yeah.
And I think when people
I
are
could
completely
go all
straight
kinds of
No, I
ape
know.
on this, but I'm
about
not
it.
going to.
Yeah. I mean, I'm very transparent. I have a but it felt wrong for a long time because I was always trying to figure out. In the beginning, it was no banner ads. I'm educational only.
Right.
Oh crap! I'm not going to make any money. I made a lot of mistakes. I didn't do affiliate ever until relatively recently. You know, I had this like stupid viewpoint. So the way I did it is I put all the disclaimers up saying, of course, you know, people are sending equipment. Of course, there's times when I'm talking about things that stuff is coming my way. But I'm very clear now, anytime I create content for a client in our industry that I'm getting paid to create, I specifically say sponsored by. So the whole series from Small HD has a whole stinger, and at the end it says sponsored by Small HD.
Right.
The same thing for the Zeiss series. So
Yeah.
I'm not hiding that. It's
No.
my viewpoint, but it's still a client. It's still a conversation about what are the things we're trying to communicate. I won't talk about it if I disagree with them on it, but I think that that's part of, you know, I think that that's part of what you owe the community. You don't owe the community oh, why didn't you do this in your video? Because it's our video that we're creating for free.
Yeah.
I only look for constructive feedback. I can learn from other feedback, but what gets me going in terms of creating content is people who appreciate the content that you're creating, and they want you to create additional content. And it's how you ask or how you comment that makes all the difference in the world.
And I want to separate very clearly the difference between I have no problem with people monetizing and making money. I'm, you know, a good old American capitalist, depending on how you define that. But there's definitely clear snake oil, you know, nasty greasy haired car salesman ways of going about it, which I do not agree. Be honest, be clear, and don't do anything. If it feels weird or you feel like you have to hide something, just don't do whatever it is that's giving you that feeling. And if you don't have those feelings and you do shady stuff, then, you know, it's time to search your soul.
Yep.
That's a good point to call it, gents. It's 11 p.m. here, and I've got a very early start. So just there was an idea for another episode in those last set of comments. I don't know if you noticed about love to see everyone's streaming setup. So right now, you'd love to see mine right now. I'm in this hotel room. I've got my rucksack, my camera backpack behind my laptop with my jacket on top of that, with my camera balanced precariously on the top of it. It's Heath Robinson. Yeah. Heath Robinson. Yeah.
Night, Travis. Yeah, no, excellent. And I do want to say that we learn from your comments, and the chat is really what makes Cameron Flask. So
absolutely,
you know, it's like
absolutely.
And I learn, I notice. It's amazing for me when I'm reading the chat as we're doing this, because it's just really great to see other people's perspectives and when you guys ask questions and and it's
just great seeing how like stuff that we all seem to have independently come to the same ways of doing things, which is really interesting, and seeing how you guys are doing things as well are so similar. And also some amazing completely new ideas that are not considered. So every week that's massively useful for us too. It's great.
Love it. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Great questions.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, everyone. Gents, we'll see you next week for our last show before NAB. So do we want to do...
We have two more.
Oh, wait, two more.
No, you do. I'll be... I'm going to be in LA. But do we want to do our final NAB guide next week then?
Well, next week we might want to do predictions. And then we could do like a part 2 right before the show.
Predictions. How about this? Predictions, what you want to see. So not what you predict, but what you actually want to see. Yeah. And then what you're kind of shopping for, researching.
Yep.
Okay. Cool.
Well, Caleb's going to write the title in the description. He's going to be the host next week. Ouch. And I'm excited about that one. And every Wednesday, 6 p.m. Eastern, Camera and Flask, we will be doing episodes next week, the following week, and we will be, for the first time ever, episode 24 will be all three of us together on Wednesday, April 10th, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. So I would just like to say, gentlemen, love you guys. Love everybody who comes to the chat and hangs out with us every week. And we start chatting NAB next week. I'm excited. It's going to be our first NAB episode. So we'll have basically 3 in a row that'll sort of be in and around NAB. Is that right, Caleb? Do we feel good about that? Sort of. Maybe not.
Wait. Maybe we should just do the actual NAB one and the one right before. Next week we'll do NAB. The week after we'll do whatever we want to do without Ben.
Yep.
And then we'll NAB it.
And then we'll NAB it, which will be sort of our roundup and everything else.
Bam.
So that's awesome. Good. Yeah, Bart. Good. I'm sorry, guys. I know everybody has to go. Bart saying hopes to get together. We're thinking about Tuesday at what did we say? Did we say 3 p.m. between South and Central Hall? Or 2 p.m. 3 p.m. on Tuesday. Is 3?
Yeah, 3 is a good time.
3 o'clock. Whatever the beer thing is between Central and South Hall, we're going to be hanging out there at 3 p.m. on Tuesday. Don't say Wednesday. Tuesday of the show. So if you're at NAB, come visit us. We'll mention it again next week. And all the best, everybody. Take care.
Bam.
Yeah.
Bye, guys.
Night all.